Hi ladies and gents, I'm over in our class meeting corner. I welcome you to our class meeting. I just wanted to quickly go over our schedule for today. Today is Tuesday, it's day 2 of our rotation. You'll be starting out with literacy and then you will have math. You'll have lunch and recess and you'll come back and you will go to PE, then you'll have recess. When you come back in, you'll have weekly report, and then at Ms. Howell's discretion, you have Friday choice. Otherwise, you'll have independent work time. So I wanted to share, I'm going to come over to a place where I can have a more stable place than just my lap. And I have a picture book for you guys that, again, is one of the Washington Children's Choice Picture Book Awards called My Best Friend is as Sharp as a Pencil. And this is the second book, I believe. Yeah, this is the second book by Hannah Piven, who also wrote My Dog is as Smelly as Dirty Socks and Other Funny Family Portraits. So, My Best Friend is as Sharp as a Pencil. Remember, these are the end papers. My Best Friend is as Sharp as a Pencil and Other Funny Classroom Portraits by Hannah Piven. When Grandma comes to visit, she asks so many questions about our school. What's your teacher like? What's your favorite part of the day? Who's your best friend? Who's your favorite teacher? Who do you play with? Who's your second best friend? Who's in your class? This time, instead of giving her the same old boring answers, I have an idea. I'll show her. Oh, just kidding. I have to learn how to be backwards here with the video. I'll show her. Now, Grandma, let's see. You asked about my teacher, Mrs. Jennings. Mrs. Jennings talks in a voice that's as sweet as candy, except when she's very excited. She can spell anything without making one mistake, and she smells so lovely, lovely as flowers. But you gotta be careful. She notices everything, just like a pair of glasses. Mrs. Jennings, I'm giving you an A+. And you can see all the pieces from the description reused in the portrait. At recess, I like to play with my best friend, Jack. Jack knows everything about almost every country in the world. Jack is as sharp as a pencil, as curious as a magnifying glass, and as precise as a microscope. Is he a genius or what? It will take me about 1,200 steps to cross the smallest country in the world, the Vatican. And yes, that is true. The Vatican is the smallest country in the world. I imagine that one of you would have asked me that at this point if I were actually there. What's the most fun part about going to school? Going to the library. See, I'm smart too. Listening to Mrs. Sheila, the librarian, is as exciting as rubbing a magic lamp. She is as interesting as a book full of stories. When she reads them, her eyes shine like marbles. She can be as funny as a clown or as scary as a monster. Shh! There's a story starting now. Alice was beginning to get very tired of sitting by her sister. And who's my favorite teacher? Well, my favorite teacher is as mysterious as dark glasses and as artistic as a paint palette. He's as relaxed as my favorite pair of jeans and always so colorful, just like my new set of crayons. He's Mr. Kristoff, my art teacher. Isn't he cool? To say, I feel like this is a stereotype of what an art teacher would look like, and as somebody who doesn't look stereotypically artsy but enjoys art, I have an issue with the stereotype in here. There's one person in my school who is so much fun. She's as happy as a balloon, as graceful as a ballet slipper, as jumpy as a million rubber bands, and as loud as jingling bells. She is Sophia, the wildest girl in my class. It's party time. My second best friend at school is someone very quiet. Someone who is slower than a snail, someone who is as hard as a nut and has a shell too, and someone as green as lettuce leaves. Can you guess who it is? It's Mildred the turtle, our class pet. Slow down, you move too fast. There are so many other kids in my class. One's as playful as a bowling pin, one's as smart as a computer part, one's as happy as gummy worms, and one is as fancy as lipstick. One is as loud as a kazoo, and one is as quiet as a fish. One is as strong as a bulldozer, and one is as delicate as the sound of a violin. Then there's one girl who looks a lot like me, who's as clever as Legos. I can't show them all to you, but here are just a few. Can you tell which one is me? Remember, she gave us a clue on the previous page as to which one was her. Does that answer all your questions, Grandma? The end. So we are going to continue on with the next chapter in Storm Runners, which is the chapter starting at 5:02 p.m. So if you would please, Miss Howell, make sure that the next chapter is up on there starting at 5:02 p.m. It starts out. Chase followed Nicole onto the screen porch of the Rossi's old farmhouse. He looked at the sofas and chairs scattered about and wondered what it would be like to sit there in the evening, listening to lion tamers, clowns, acrobats, and little people talking about their day. To get through the front door, they had to move several boxes of framed newspaper articles, photos, and other circus memorabilia to the side. Where's she moving this stuff? We have a waterproof storage container out back by the pool. Nicole led the way into a large kitchen where the counters, cupboards, and appliances were at least 2 feet lower than they'd normally be. Think in your mind for a minute about why. Mama Rossi, a bit gray-haired and a bit shorter than her son, stood at the sink peeling sweet potatoes. Sitting next to the sink was a small green monkey wearing a diaper. He was holding a potato peel in one hand and scratching his leg with the other. Mama Rossi turned around and gave him a big smile. She put her hand out. "You must be Chase Masters. Welcome to our house." "Thank you." Chase shook her hand. Mama Rossi stared at him with her dark eyes, and her smile faded. "I'm so sorry about your mother and sister." Chase froze. "What are you talking about?" Nicole asked. Mama Rossi gripped Chase's hand more tightly. "A car accident on a mountain. I'm sure it hasn't been easy for you or for your father." Tomas must have told Arturo, Chase thought. But looking into Mama Rossi's dark eyes, he had an eerie feeling that wasn't how she knew. 2 years earlier, we can see that it changes time. It had rained every day Chase had been at Boy Scout camp, and it was still raining. He was standing in the parking lot with his troop leader, Mr. Murphy. All morning, one by one, parents had been picking up their drenched scouts. Now it was just Chase and Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy looked at his watch for the 100th time. "Are you sure your parents were clear on when and where to pick you up?" "Yes, sir. Like I told you, I talked to them last night. Mom said that they were driving up with my little sister. On the way home, we're going to stop at our cabin and pick up a load of firewood for the house." "Well, maybe they stopped at the cabin first." "I don't think so. Dad wouldn't haul a truckload of wood all the way up here, then drive it back down the mountain." "You're probably right. You have a phone at your cabin?" "No." Mr. Murphy pulled his cell out and called Chase's house and his parents' cells again. All 3 calls went to voicemail. Chase was starting to feel sick. His parents were never late for anything. "We can't stand here all day waiting," Mr. Murphy said. "How about if I leave a note for them here and voicemails on their phones saying I've taken you to my house?" "Okay." Chase tossed his soggy gear into the back of Mr. Murphy's SUV. About halfway down the mountain, they ran into a terrible traffic jam. Chase was so worried about his parents not showing up that he barely noticed the line of cars stretching ahead of them until they reached the end of it. On the opposite side of the highway, at least a half-dozen police cars with flashing lights clustered on the shoulder. A tow truck was winching a blue SUV out of the ditch. "That's my parents' car," Chase shouted. Go ahead and pause here and think about what you need to add to your timeline from the time in the past, then, that this flashback was a part of. So this was, again, 2 years earlier. So you can go ahead and pause, and you can add that to our timeline. Did you do it? Okay, continuing on. Are you still a Boy Scout? Mama Rossi asked. What? Chase pulled his hand away from Mama Rossi quickly. Are you okay? Nicole asked. Yeah, I asked if you were still a Boy Scout, Miss Mama Rossi repeated. No, we've been traveling, he said. Helping people, Mama Rossi said. Chase nodded, but he knew it wasn't exactly true. And then we have another break in either time or location. At that moment, John Masters and Tomas were trolling separate parts of St. Petersburg. John was driving through the business district, and Tomas was driving through the wealthier residential areas. If a business or homeowner, never a contractor, was out making preparations for a storm, they'd stop, introduce themselves, and offer to give them a hand for free. Tomas's poor English was not a hindrance. His skilled hands transcended all language barriers. Both men knew precisely how to prepare a home or business for disaster. They were fast and efficient. They also knew that if the wind was strong enough, no preparation was going to save an expensive building or home from damage. The grateful owner usually tried to pay them for their time, but they refused. Instead, they handed over a couple of MD Emergency Services business cards and told the owners to call if they had any problems. If the winds were strong enough and the water high enough, they would all have problems and they would call. But the second round of repairs would not be free. At this point, Ms. Howell, if students seem like they need a brief body break from their seats, you can give it to them. And then otherwise, if you'd like, you can continue reading another chapter, or if you think students are ready, they can have their first rotation of Daily 5. During the first rotation, there's lessons for the Day 2 word work group ready to go, as well as all the guided reading groups that are listed on the board. For our second Daily 5 lesson, Ms. Howell was going to be talking with you about author's purpose related to that note from the author at the end of My Best Friend is Sharp as a Pencil. So I'm going to turn that over to her, and she's going to be talking with you about why you think that that author included that letter at the end of the story, why it was at the end of the story, not at the beginning, and who the audience is, and why he wanted to connect with you in that way, rather than just through his picture book. For math today, ladies and gents, I have a little bit for that you're going to work on for perimeter, because we've talked about that in the past briefly, but Ms. Howell is going to talk to you about perimeter being the length around a shape, and then you're going to have some work that you're going to practice with that. And then additionally, the other piece that I have for you guys is we were talking about patterns, especially with my second graders on your Monday monitoring. And I noticed that you guys are good at extending patterns, but you still could use some extra support on actually writing what the rule is or writing what the pattern is. So I have a piece called Train Traction. And this one I'm going to print for you on blue paper and hole punch it. So if you work on this independently, then that's something you could turn in that would be eligible for your portfolio. If you want to work on it in groups, that's fine, but it's not going to be eligible for a portfolio. If you want it to be considered for a portfolio, just write portfolio on the bottom, and then I'll put portfolio on the top. I hope you had a good lunch and recess, ladies and gents. Ms. Howell is going to be taking you through some more conversation around voting, since today is technically voting day. There aren't going to be people out at the polls. They will all be submitting their mail-in ballots. So I will turn it over to Ms. Howell to share more about that with you. How did your day go, ladies and gentlemen? As you were coming in from second recess, Cricket and I both hope that you are able to earn your Friday choice. So, Ms. Howell, what do you think? Have things been going well enough today? Oh, I don't know how Cricket feels about this. Cricket's not sure. Cricket's like, are you sure that you're ready for Friday choice? You decide, Ms. Howell.